Coming up on our newscast, a scene full of laughter, tears, and tightly clutched hands. The first session of long overdue reunions for war-torn Korean families opens today in North Korea's Mount Kumgang resort. Defense ministers of South Korea and Japan meet to discuss military issues, including changes that expand the role of Japanese forces abroad. Korea leads the charge in an OECD ministerial meeting for science in Daejeon. Experts in the field gather for the two-day event to discuss ways to solve global challenges using revolutionary science and technology. All next on Primetime News. It's 10 p.m. on a Tuesday here in Korea, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Daniel Choy for Primetime News. Families divided by the Korean War met for the first time in more than half a century at the Mount Kumgang resort in North Korea this afternoon. It was an emotional event that culminated with an outpouring of tears and laughter. Connie Kim has our top story.
80-year-old Lee Heung-ok has been waiting for this moment for decades. As soon as her brother Lee Heung-jong enters in a wheelchair, she instantly recognizes him and runs up to her long-lost brother. It's also a dream come true for Lee Heung-jong as he is seeing his grown daughter Lee Jung-suk for the first time. The last time he saw her, she was 2 years old. They don't dare waste a minute of the precious time they have together. The chance to hold on tightly to each other's hands is what these families have long been longing for every day and night. These heart-touching moments soon give way to tears for these siblings now in their 80s. Drafted by the military during the war, younger sister Nam Sun-ok thought her brother was dead. The families from the South take time to reminisce on the past, sharing stories and looking at photographs as they try to make up for the more than 6 decades of lost time. These are just a few of the 389 South Koreans lucky enough to be chosen for this first round of family reunions that will extend over 3 days. On the second day of the reunions, families will have 3 meeting sessions, starting with closed-door meetings, where the families will get some private time. That will be followed by a luncheon and a group meeting. In total, they will get to meet 6 times for a total of 12 hours, which is an extra hour from previous reunions as requested by South Korea. Even still, for many families, it's not enough time, especially because they won't know when or if they'll ever see each other again. Most of the remaining separated family members are in their 80s and 90s, which shows just how pressing it is for these meetings to be held on a regular basis. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Gut-wrenching moment even for those who are just looking. The reunions are underway for the few families who were chosen, as we have just seen, but to many others who are not selected this time around, seeing their long-lost loved ones across the border remain elusive. Kwon Jang-ho explains why.
1953. The Korean War ends and the peninsula is divided into north and south, displacing an estimated 10 million families. For decades, these families remained torn until the Korean Red Cross launched a campaign in 1971 to try and find and reunite them. A reunion finally took place in September 1985 as part of a cultural exchange event between the two Koreas. But it would be another 15 years until the next one came along. At a groundbreaking inter-Korean summit in 2000, South Korean President Kim Dae-jung successfully negotiated a deal with North Korean leader Kim Jong-il, and a series of reunion events followed. Since then, there have been 19 more, and this year's will be the 20th. The reunions have been hailed as a breakthrough in inter-Korean relations, but for the separated families, it can be a frustrating and agonizing process, as most do not get the chance to meet. Since 1988, over 130,000 people in South Korea have registered with the government as separated family members. Almost half have passed away now, and less than 4,000 families have taken part in the reunions. For this latest round, 100 people from each side were chosen by lottery to reunite with their families. Why only 100? North Korea claims that the Mount Kumgang resort where the meeting is taking place can only accommodate a limited number. But South Korean experts say it has more to do with control, as the participants are hand-picked and given instructions on what to say and how to act. The families who are fortunate enough to participate in the reunions only have a few hours over several days to spend with their long-lost relatives. And once the reunion is over, there is no further contact between them. For the thousands still waiting, time is running out. Over 50% of those currently on the separated families list in South Korea are in their 80s or above. Surviving family members and their advocates are pushing for more reunions, but with the North Korean regime unwilling to consent and the political relationship between the two Koreas unpredictable, most families will be left wondering about the fate of their loved ones. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
In the local political arena, it was a rare moment. Korea's rival parties spoke in unison for a change. They're all for doing whatever it takes to make the reunions for war-separated families a regular event. Park Ji-won tells us more.
Korea's rival parties have finally found something to agree on. Speaking on Tuesday, the first day of a round of reunions for war-separated families, the two main parties called for the reunions to be a regular event. The ruling Saenuri party characterized the matter as an urgent one that has remained unresolved for more than half a century, and asked the government to seek ways to increase the number of reunions in the future.
We hope these reunions will become a stepping stone to an ultimate resolution of this issue for war-separated families, and also to inter-Korean confidence building and reconciliation for more cooperation.
The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy party echoed the sentiment and urged the government to hold inter-Korean talks to discuss the matter.
We need to establish a stable peace by increasing the number of peaceful inter-Korean exchanges if a peaceful reunification is not possible now. Making the reunions of war-separated families a regular event is the first step in this kind of peaceful coexistence and exchange. We should hold reunions on a regular basis.
The party pointed out that 16 reunions were held over 10 years under the liberal administrations of the late presidents Kim Dae-jung and Roh Moo-hyun, while only 4 reunions were held over the next 8 years under the conservative administrations of Lee Myung-bak and Park Geun-hye. The party also emphasized the need for more inter-Korean exchanges. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye will meet with the leaders of the ruling and main opposition parties later this week. The presidential office of Cheongwade says she will meet with the chairman and floor leaders of the ruling Saenuri Party and main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy on Thursday to discuss pending issues. The reintroduction of state-issued textbooks is expected to top the agenda. Meanwhile, President Park is scheduled to address the National Assembly next Tuesday to explain the government's budget plan and policy goals for next year. She has addressed the parliament every year since taking office in 2013. The National Intelligence Service says North Korea is indeed preparing for another nuclear test. Fortunately, it won't happen anytime soon. Seoul's top spy officials believe China's influence could be a factor. For details, let's turn to Kim Young-gil.
At Tuesday's parliamentary audit of the nation's top spy agency, lawmakers from the National Assembly's Intelligence Committee were told that North Korea is being cautious about holding another round of nuclear tests. The NIS believe it's because of opposition from China. The spy agency also assessed the regime had not yet mastered the technology to miniaturize its nuclear warheads. However, North Korean experts say there is lingering speculation that Pyongyang may still launch a long-range rocket in the coming months to test what it claims is a satellite into orbit. Seoul and Washington view the possible launch as a cover for ballistic missile testing, which is banned under UN resolutions and have drawn a hardline stance against such provocations. In recent months, Pyongyang has warned that it may conduct a nuclear test in retaliation of what it says is the hostile policy of the United States and its allies. North Korea conducted nuclear tests in 2006, 2009, and 2013. All of which drew international condemnation and UN sanctions. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
South Korea and Japan held defense talks in Seoul. During the rare bilateral meeting, Japan's defense chief vowed Tokyo would abide by international law when considering troop deployment to Korea if war breaks out. But according to our Kim Hyun-bin, some experts fear there are loopholes.
South Korea's defense minister Han Min-gu and his Japanese counterpart Gen Nakataki met on Tuesday to discuss bilateral defense cooperation against North Korean threats and other matters of regional security.
Defense chiefs from Korea and Japan exchanged views on security issues, including policies regarding Japan's new security legislation that was passed in September.
Han reaffirmed the stance that Japan needs prior approval from Seoul before deploying any Japanese forces to the Korean peninsula. Nakatani agreed Tokyo would abide by international law, which requires prior consent or a request from the country in question to dispatch troops abroad. But experts say under international law, Japan does not have to gain Seoul's consent to send its troops to North Korea if war breaks out.
Korea believes Japan needs to gain prior consent from Seoul in case of war on the Korean peninsula, as North Korea is considered South Korean territory under the constitutional law. But under international law, North Korea is a separate country, so Japan doesn't need Seoul's consent to dispatch troops north of the border during wartime.
Experts say Seoul and Tokyo have been in tug-of-war for decades regarding the involvement of Japanese troops on the peninsula. And it's not likely to end, as many Koreans continue to stand against such a presence since the country suffered under Japanese colonial rule from 1910 to 1945. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
More rift in Korea-Japan relations. Korea's foreign ministry has condemned the latest visit by a large group of Japanese lawmakers to a controversial war shrine that honors the country's war dead, including 14 Class A war criminals. Seoul-based Yonhap News reports that a foreign ministry spokesperson said paying homage at the Yasukuni Shrine is no different from glorifying Japan's forcible colonization and war aggression. According to the Japan Times, 73 lawmakers from Japan's ruling party and 96 from other parties visited the shrine to mark the last day of the country's four-day autumn festival. 3 cabinet members, the ministers of demographic issues, internal affairs, and justice, visited the shrine, while Prime Minister Shinzo Abe sent an offering. As complaints about the emissions scandal surrounding Volkswagen cars continues to grow, Korean customers are also seeking legal action. One group plans to file a class action lawsuit in the U.S. this week. Kim Min-ji has the latest.
Legal battles are in the works. Korean owners of Volkswagen cars tied up in the emissions cheating scandal are planning to sue. So far, a total of 695 Korean people have initiated legal action through Patent Law, a Korean law firm representing Volkswagen customers. The law firm says it will partner with global law firm Quinn Emanuel to sue Volkswagen's German headquarters, as well as the company's U.S. division and a factory in Tennessee. The Korean customers in the case are seeking a refund for the purchase price, plus compensation for damages of $26,000 and up.
We've received applications for more than 4,000 people, so the number of plaintiffs is expected to rise. The class action involves the Passat, produced in the US, as well as models made in Germany. While we expect we'll have a high chance of winning, it's more about the compensation.
While the scandal continues to rattle the company, Volkswagen Korea says an additional 4,500 vehicles with the older and higher emissions prone Euro 5 engines will be subject to recall. Though a recall schedule hasn't been set, that brings a total to roughly 125,000 and involves 28 models. These cars are among models Volkswagen has admitted to having fitted with the defeat device to cheat U.S. emissions tests. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Ranking third in the world is something to celebrate for Korea's shipbuilding industry these days. A dismal third quarter has it stuck between a rock and a hard place for now, but a return to the industry's old glory days may be near. Shin Se-min shares some optimistic predictions by some experts.
outpaced by their Chinese and Japanese rivals. Korean shipbuilders suffered big losses in the third quarter, casting a long shadow over the country that was once the global industry leader. According to data from UK-based Clarkson Research Services, Korean shipyards bagged new orders totaling 2.1 million compensated gross tons last month. That's far behind China's nearly 3.5 million CGTs and Japan's nearly 2.4 CGTs. The losses for Korea stem mainly from an oversupply, weak financing, and lower shipping rates. And on top of that, falling global crude oil prices prompted oil refineries to cut spending by delaying or canceling orders for offshore production facilities, including drill ships. But the newly elected Secretary General of the International Maritime Organization believes Korea's sandwiched industry has the potential to overcome its difficulties. Speaking at this year's annual World Ocean Forum, he said Korea's shipbuilding industry could help solidify the country's position in the global maritime economy.
I believe, the Korean shipbuilding industry need to enhance their efforts for research and development in terms of technological development is the key to overcome competitiveness, to keep competitiveness over other rival shipbuilding industry and the nations.
He added that coordination among research centers and related ministries could help promote Korea's maritime industry in the long run. But things may not be as dark as they seem for the country's shipbuilders. Some experts point out Korea's Chinese competitors are losing steam due to enhanced global environmental regulations, as the majority of the vessels made in China still run on diesel engines, forcing an increasing number of China's potential clients to turn away. Shin Se-min, Arirang News, Busan.
The OECD has kicked off a ministerial-level meeting in science and technology in Daejeon, South Korea, a hub of the two fields in Korea. Korea is the first country to host the meeting outside of France, the site of the OECD headquarters, and it's leading discussions on a 10-year policy roadmap. Our Oh Soo-young reports.
Korea is taking the lead at the OECD Ministerial Meeting for Science as the host country of the two-day event in the city of Daejeon. The event gathers roughly 270 officials and ministers from OECD member countries and international organizations, including the Association of Southeast Asian Nations.
우리가 당면한 범지구적 문제를 해결하기 위해서는 혁신적인 과학기술을 적극 활용해야 하고 글로벌 과학기술 협력을 강화해야 합니다.
The officials are discussing the 6 core goals of the OECD's Committee for Scientific and Technological Policy under the theme of creating our common future through science, technology and innovation. It is the first time in its 52-year history that the meeting is being held in a city other than Paris.
Holding the discussions will raise Korea's global status as a leading diplomat of science and technology. Korea will actively contribute to science and technological innovation strategies related to inclusive growth, with its successful experience providing an example for developing countries.
To promote inclusive and sustainable growth, Korea will introduce its Creative Economy Initiative as the best practice model for such efforts. The talks will produce a roadmap called the Daejeon Declaration on Wednesday. This will set the direction for global initiatives and policies in science and technology for the next 10 years. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, Daejeon.
An academic seminar was held on Tuesday to commemorate 70 years since the passing of Korea's independence activist Song Jin-woo. The Song Jin-woo Memorial Society and the Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs welcomed today's event, citing that revolutionaries like Song played a crucial role in liberating Korea from Japan's colonial rule in 1945. And now for stories from around the world, we join Bruce Harrison in the news center. Bruce, in London, Chinese President Xi Jinping got the royal treatment today. It would seem this is an indication that China and Great Britain expect Xi's visit to be very fruitful and positive.
Daniel, the welcome for President Xi was reminiscent of a ceremony for the British royal family. It was extravagant. There were a few differences, including large crowds of Chinese onlookers and massive Chinese flags hanging everywhere, but it was definitely, like I said, extravagant. She even reviewed an honor guard with Prince Philip and also took a carriage ride with Queen Elizabeth after meeting Prime Minister David Cameron. Now, his visit's being viewed as the beginning of a golden era in ties between the two countries, but some Brits have concerns about China's role in their marketplace. Steel production's one of the big ones.
Of course, we're doing everything we can in Europe to help our steel industry. That is why we voted in favour of dumping tariffs against the Chinese, and we'll do everything we can to help our steel industry.
The British government has also been criticized for apparently overlooking human rights abuses in China in favor of strengthening business ties. A young gun and underdog in Canada's general election has won a stunning victory to become the new Prime Minister. Liberal Party leader Justin Trudeau defeated Prime Minister Stephen Harper's Conservatives on Monday. The Liberals were a distant third-place party in Canada's Parliament before the election. Harper conceded the race, bringing an end to his 9-year run and conservative brand of fiscal and cultural policies.
Canadians from all across this great country sent a clear message tonight. It's time for a change in this country, my friends, a real change.
Trudeau's platform includes plans for heavy investment in infrastructure to jumpstart Canada's slowed growth. This shook financial markets ahead of the vote, and news of victory drove down the Canadian dollar. Paralympic gold medalist Oscar Pistorius has been released from prison, but he won't be returning to racing. The South African athlete known as the Blade Runner is out on house arrest after serving a year in prison for killing his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp. In early 2013, Pistorius fired 4 shots through a locked bathroom door, killing Steenkamp. Pistorius still faces an appeal from prosecutors who say he should have been convicted of murder, not culpable homicide.
It's very important for the family to emphasize that Oscar's sentence hasn't been shortened or reduced. He's simply entering the next phase of his sentence now.
A spokesperson said Pistorius will strictly adhere to conditions set by the parole board and community corrections. Pistorius became the first runner amputee to compete in Olympic Games in 2012, but considering his crime, it's unlikely his remarkable career will ever recover. And that's a glimpse of the world. Have a great night.
Hello, I'm Daejeon with your weather report. More dust-blanketed areas across the peninsula, and today's dry breeze did little to help clear things up. And tomorrow is forecast to be another dusty and hazy day for the western parts of the peninsula, while the rest will have normal air quality. And temperature readings will be similar to today's, as the daily low here in Seoul will start out at 13 before getting up to 24. Daejeon and Busan will hit 25. While Gwangju tops out at 26. And as for the other regions, Daejeon and Jeju Island will see a high of 25 and 22, while Dokdo peaks at 21. Now, do expect another foggy morning on Wednesday, and be sure to drive with extra caution. And conditions will stay mild throughout the week, with spotty rain in the forecast on your Saturday morning. And over on the Mount Kumgang, where family reunions are taking place, typical autumn weather is in store tomorrow, but rain is expected overnight through Thursday morning, adding a chill to the air. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the globe.
We've come to the end of this edition of Primetime News. As always, thank you for watching. We'll have more updates coming your way at midnight Korea time.